Check, 1, 2, check.
This is what democracy looks like! Thank you so much!
Thank you!
Thank you for being here!
Thank you!
Thank you for being the People's Convention out here in the street! Democracy is not at the Democratic National Convention! Democracy is what you have started, and democracy is what we will continue together all the way to November 8th, 2016. This movement is a movement and not one man. We are grateful to Bernie Sanders for having lifted up this movement and grateful to you for being this movement. This movement with Bernie, it came up the mountain, but together we will go on to the promised land.
Jail not hell! 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 Jail not hell!
Right here, we see the power of what you created. This movement for democracy and justice, which you have unleashed through Bernie's campaign, you lifted up what so many of us have been working on in the social movements for so long, in the fight for $15 an hour minimum wage. In the fight to make sure that every black life matters. In the fight to stop the pipelines all over this country. In the fight to cancel student debt like we did. In the fight to create a foreign policy based on international law and human rights, not on regime change and we can have an America and a world that works for all of us. We cannot just create a world for the United States of America. We are one world, one people, together. And we can have an economy here that respects working people, that respects labor unions, that respects economic justice, that respects racial justice, and that stops these rigged corporate trade deals given to us by the Democratic Party. We say no. The fact that Hillary has adopted this position against the TPP, but the Democratic platform would not even pretend to stop the TPP, tells us how far we would get under a Hillary Clinton administration. The fact that Hillary Clinton saw fit and the DNC saw fit to relegate Bernie Sanders to a footnote on an opening Monday evening instead of the night of the nomination is an outrage against this movement. And the future of this movement is not inside the Democratic Party, is within which is that you cannot have a revolutionary campaign inside of a counter-revolutionary political party. This campaign, the Bernie movement, our movement, its future is with independent politics in the form of the Green Party that will support this movement all the way until we prevail. This is a movement that brings us together for people, planet, and peace over profit together. What we have in Philadelphia right now is a microcosm of this global crisis. We are seeing a crisis of poverty, of unemployment, of schools that have been shut down and privatized, a crisis of health care that people cannot afford. We have a crisis of the climate, which we are feeling today in record heat. A heat wave today of 98 degrees is a heat wave of 120 degrees not so long from now, perhaps 20 years from now, that we are also hearing as soon as 2050. We are on track for a devastating sea level rise of 9 feet, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. If we stay on this course, but we say no to this course of death and destruction, we say yes to a course of justice, sustainability, peace, and democracy. That is the course that we are on. This crisis of the economy and of our climate can be fixed, and we could start fixing it right now, starting with a ban on all new fossil fuel infrastructure. No oil, no public lands, no Arctic extraction. We must shut it down now. While you create.
No fracking way! 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 No fracking way!
And we can do that, at the same time we create a Green New Deal, like the New Deal that got us out of the Great Depression. Why don't we have that now? We should. It works. We don't have to lie here in a terrible depression. They say it's a recovery. It's not a recovery. It's an emergency. We can create a Green New Deal right now to get us out of this crash economy, this unjust economy, by creating 20 million good wage jobs right now. So everyone has the right to a good job, creating a healthy community, a healthy energy system, a healthy food system, a healthy mass transportation system. And we can do that now at the same time that we make the friggin' wars for oil obsolete. And we stop this crisis, the catastrophic crisis of climate, by calling this the emergency that it is, and resolving that we will achieve 100% clean, renewable energy by 2030. We can solve these emergencies of the climate, of the economy, of global peace and security. At the same time, we actually massively improve our health. In fact, we save so much money by getting rid of the pollution, by creating a healthy food system, not this industrial, GMO, frankenfood, poison food that we are subsidizing and inflicting on our communities. Instead, we get rid of these food deserts and we start gardens and community gardens and small farms all over this country. When we do that, we get so much healthier so quickly. The savings alone in our health expenditures are enough to pay the cost of the emergency green energy transition. This is a win-win-win, and it pays for itself. There is no reason for us not to go there now. And the last thing I want to mention, because I know it impacts many people who are here today, and many people that we are related to, and that is that it is time to bail out the millennials, the young people, the trapped in student loan debt. We bailed out the bankers who crashed the economy with their waste, fraud, and abuse. It's time to bail out the victims of that abuse, a younger generation that has been held hostage in student debt. And here's the best news. We saved 42 million people get a new lease on life when we cancel that student debt, and 42 million, take this home with you, is enough to win a three-way presidential race. So just by getting the word out, believe me, you don't have to work too hard to persuade people who are swamped in student debt that they should come out and vote green to cancel their student debt. And if we get the word out, and friends tell friends, there is no stopping us. We come out and we take over this election. We have been coming up in the polls from 2%, a couple weeks ago, to 6 and 7% without any help from the corporate media. And what we learned in this email revelations is that the corporate media is, guess what, surprise, surprise, also in bed with Hillary Clinton and the DNC. We don't need their help. We have a thing called social media. Thanks to you, we protected that internet from privatization, so we can still get the word out through the people's media, through our networks, through our social movements. We can get the word out and assure people that this movement will go on. The lesser evil is not lesser enough to save your job, to save your life, or to save the planet. The lesser evil is a propaganda campaign intended to intimidate you out of your power. Because the lesser evil does not work. Just look at the results of the last 15, 16 years. We were told we had to use the politics of fear and vote against your fears rather than for what you believe in. And what did we get? All those reasons we were told to vote for the lesser evil because you didn't want the expanding wars, because you didn't want the meltdown of the climate, because you didn't want the massive Wall Street bailouts, or the expanding security state, or the massive prison industrial complex, or the attack on immigrants, or on our civil liberties, and the right of the free press. That's exactly what we got by allowing ourselves to be silenced. When we silence ourselves with this lesser evil thing, we create a moral vacuum. If our voices aren't there as the public interest, it's the corporate predator politicians who are there. They fill this moral vacuum, and it's all downward from there. And furthermore, people stop coming out to vote for lesser evil politicians that are throwing them under the bus.
Say it again, Jeff.
So it's a losing proposition. The lesser evil merely paves the way to the greater evil. And that's exactly what we have seen happen. After the election of a lesser evil president, we saw first one House of Congress flip from blue to red, and then another House of Congress, not because it was a victory, it was not a victory for Republicans, it was a loss for Democrats because the base just couldn't bring themselves to come out and vote. Labor stayed home, women stayed home, immigrants and Latinos stayed home, and youth stayed home. The answer here, the answer at the end of the day is very simple. Forget the lesser evil, fight for the greater good. In this election, we are not just deciding what kind of a world we will have, but whether we will have a world or not going forward. The day of reckoning is coming closer, whether you're looking at the crash of the climate, the expanding police state, the expanding prison complex, the next crash of the economy, the new nuclear arms race created by none other than Barack Obama, who's created $1 trillion program for new nuclear weapons and modes of delivery. So we say, this is not a time to silence ourselves. You are the moral conscience of this nation. Together, we have the power to create an America and a world that works for all of us. We can create that world with a Green New Deal, with a foreign policy based on international law and human rights. No more $100 billion deals to give the Saudis terrible weapons to distribute to every reckless terrorist in the Middle East. We're saying no to selling weapons. We're saying no to providing subsidies to countries like the country of Israel, which is violating human rights. We say to our allies, in all humility, because we have been leading the charge in violating international law and human rights. So in all humility, we say it's time to turn the page from a crisis for people, planet, and peace to a new day for all of us on a small planet in which we are all going to sail together, or we are all going to sink together. The words of Martin Luther King have come home with incredible power. The threat to justice anywhere, injustice anywhere, is a threat to justice everywhere. We need an America and a world that works for all of us. The power to create that world is not just in our hopes, it's not just in our dreams. Right here and now, it's in our hands.